Welcome to Bible Study with Faith, where I'm reading the Bible out loud to you in a way that's easier to understand. This is the book of Joshua, and we are on chapter 5. Now, when all the Amorite kings west of the Jordan and all the Canaanite kings along the coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan before the Israelites until they had crossed over, their hearts melted in fear, and they no longer had the courage to face the Israelites. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeath Haarath. Now this is why he did so. All those who came out of Egypt, all the men of military age, died in the wilderness on the way after leaving Egypt. All the people that came out had been circumcised, but all the people born in the wilderness during the journey from Egypt had not. The Israelites had moved about in the wilderness for 40 years until all the men who were of military age when they left Egypt had died, since they had not obeyed the Lord. For the Lord had sworn to them that they would not see the land he had solemnly promised their ancestors to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. I have to say this out loud and on camera. Every time I read the words, a land flowing with milk and honey, I feel as though it is a mistranslation of some sort, or maybe an add-in. I have no proof other than the way that I feel in my heart. We'll talk about that more later. So he raised up their sons in their place, and these were the ones Joshua circumcised. They were still uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. We're saying that again, that these people were very young, or they were all born on the way to the promised land, and everybody who was of age that had already been circumcised previously is now passed away. They're dead. And after the whole nation had been circumcised, they remained where they were in camp until they were healed. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you." So the place has been called Gilgal till this day. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, now we need to remember that Passover is the day that we commemorate the Holy Spirit passing over the houses that were marked with the blood of the Lamb, so that their children, their firstborn, would not die. Every other firstborn in the entire city was taken from their family. They literally dropped dead where they stood, whether they were an infant or a grown person, if their parents did not take the time to cover the top of their doors with blood from the sacrificial lamb that they were to take and sacrifice the night before, then their firstborns would die. So in order to commemorate this passing over of the death of the firstborn, every year the family is to gather together, and they eat a very specific plate of foods, and people fast, pray, and feast. Moving on. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land. This is the first time they're getting to taste the fruits of the land instead of eating manna in 40 years. And for those who don't know, manna is a food that God rained down from the heavens onto the ground. They were to take what they needed, eat that, take no leftovers, because anything that was left over would rot. So you had to eat every night before you went to bed and then leave the rest. The manna stopped the day, the day after Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. The manna stopped the day after. They ate this food from the land. There was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. So wonderful. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked him, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of your army, of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. So we have the landing, the stopping of the walking in the wilderness at the end of the 40 years. We have the recircumcision of all of God's people, because everybody who had been circumcised previously after they were released from slavery had already passed away, having been promised that they would not make it to the promised land, but their ancestors, but their children would. And this is punishment for all the times that they created idols and broke God's laws on the way there to the land of Canaan, which is also referred to as the land of milk and honey, which for me, I don't believe that the consumption of milk and honey is, for me, we were created in the Garden of Eden and we didn't eat animals there. And I know that we have had to eat animals throughout time in order to survive. I feel that milk and honey are kind of like on the borderline of whether or not it's something that we're supposed to eat or revere. I feel that milk and honey is something that the Greeks definitely introduced into the diet. I have to do more communication with God and be led into more research so that I can speak in depth more about these things being introduced to the diet. Honey does turn into sugar inside of the system and should be eaten sparingly. And same with milk. It's created to feed infants of whatever younging is born. Breast milk for humans, and cow's milk is for cows, and sheep's milk is for lambs. So I don't know 100% whether or not humans were meant to be consuming the formula, basically, that God created for infants of every species, which is their mother's milk. Are adults, grown human beings, meant to consume these liquids in the forms of milks and cheeses, or honey, which is a bee's form of formula? Breast milk, if you will. They don't breastfeed, but they make food for their young, and then humans eat it. So I don't know. I just went off into a rabbit hole of a whole nother nature, but that's what comes to me, and now I want to go on a mission to find out whether or not we are actually supposed to be consuming this, and if God would be like, "Oh, well, you're going to the land of milk and honey because it flows and it feeds you," but it doesn't say that they're eating that. it says that they're going to the land of milk and honey. They defeated the people that lived there, which tells me that they were not living their lives right. And then they began to eat the fruits of the land, guys. So just because they went to the land of milk and honey doesn't mean we're supposed to be eating it, that it's a delicacy, it's a God food. Because the food from God comes from the seed-bearing plants, and the medicine comes from the herbs. So yeah, that is the end of Joshua chapter 5. I look forward to reading chapter 6. If you would like to catch up, all you got to do is pick up a Bible. Any Bible will do. Read the book of Joshua, chapters 1 through 5. Or you can find me at Jesus is a DJ on my YouTube channel, and I'll do the reading for you.